Welcome back to my negative corner of the internet, where I talk about controversial things that people tag me in or send to me on TikTok. Here's my TikTok information, somewhere on the screen, I'm sure. It's always weird for me to share that because I really just built my TikTok following and community within the app. I never shared it outwardly and was like, follow me, mom. I just existed there and then other places differently. So here you go. You get to see it. Up close. Follow me. You can follow me if you want. I just talk about life hacks over there. I don't really talk about controversial things. But you can tag me in things that you see. Send them to me. Whatever you want to do there. Now, that's that for that part of the intro. And I think that part's going to be used for the rest of March because Jen, who edits the videos, is going on vacation. So we're doing this all at one time. Point number 2, I'm sick. And rather than film 3 different introductions for March, I'm just going to do one. But I'm going to cut this part that I'm about to say out. So, plus the rest of the intro is in the video. Like when I do a voiceover. Whatever, you don't care about that. I had to take a little bit of a break in February because I realized I was not being authentic. I haven't been for a while. I went from someone who was sharing their emotions and their feelings to a brand. And that's not fair to myself nor anybody else that I was helping. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to share with you why. I do have 2 personal vlogs that I'm going to go more in depth with this topic on at the end of this month. The last 2 Thursdays. I'll talk about those briefly in a second. But it was easier for me to sell out and start just Life IQ coaching. Go follow our Patreon. Why? I'll fucking tell you when you get there. It was easier for me to sell out and do that than it was to continue addressing my emotions. Because that's how I am. And I don't think anyone likes to be vulnerable on the internet, especially in front of random people or people that they know or people that look up to them or people that they look up to. And yeah, so I stopped doing that. And I just started doing brand stuff and saying, hey, I'm a brand now. But we're not doing that anymore. We're going to be authentic. Also, I think that I kind of steered away from it too because a year ago when I was doing them, my personal vlogs did really well. And that sounds like a really weird thing to say. Yeah, me being sad on the internet did well. But I mean, yeah, from a view standpoint, it for sure did well. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that's not something that was in my mind when I was thinking about authenticity. But it also helped me and to really process my emotions. And I did get a lot of messages from a lot of people, and I still do on older content, older long form videos that say, something I said helped them or my process has helped them through stuff. And so it's unfair of me to just sell out. And okay, I think because what it sounded like was it was unfair of me to take that from people, but that's not the direction I'm going. It's unfair of me to expect people to still just innately follow me in what I do without sharing the processes that I've had to go through to get here. That sounds a lot better than I'm God's gift to earth. Because I'm not. So yeah, so I am getting back into authenticity. I'm really excited about that because I have so many things that I want to share, but I've just been but that doesn't fit with my brand mission. I don't give a fuck. If you like me, you like my brand. That's it. That's point blank period. I'm no longer watching what I say. It's not that I was actively doing it, but a part of me was. I was I can't look like I'm sad because I am a mental health coach and this, that, and the third. I don't give a fuck. We're all sad. The world's ending. We're allowed to be sad. So, personal vlogs, we're going to have the crazy neighbor story. I'm going to have a where are we now story. I got cut off because why wouldn't I? Also, a book that's coming out that is, I'm not going to say anything else about it because that would be selling out, but it is super authentic. It'll be the end of this year. Yeah, and then the 2 personal vlogs are going to be the last 2 Thursdays of this month. So, that's all I have on that. Let's just get into this. I hope you enjoy it. It's the School to Prison pipeline, and I'm making some crafts. I'm going to be completely honest with you. My microphone decided it didn't want to work. So, my apologies that the sound is a little weird. I'm going to try not to move around so much. Also, I am sick. I woke up all stuffy and now my voice is just raspy. So we're gonna just do this, okay? Today I'm going to talk about the events that happened as a result of the policies mentioned in last month's video, which I will link here somewhere in the video and in the description. This video I think is 20 minutes, this one right here that I get to voice over, so I'm not going to reflect on that one. If you need the definition or the policies, go watch that. I might have 6 minutes left over in the end. I'm not too sure. But if I do, I can touch on what I touched on last week. Zero tolerance policies exist in school and in the workplace. And they don't really belong in either place as far as I'm concerned. Well, no. Okay. Maybe, I would say maybe they do. However, it all needs to be entirely situational. As an example, and I have to watch what I say so that the comments don't get auto shut off again, but let's say in school someone is pretending to play with a handheld, life-destroying device, like using their hands. They make the shape with their hands. And another student brings in an orange-capped, fake handheld, life-destroying device into the school. And then in another situation, someone says that they're going to bring in a handheld life-destroying device. In all three of these situations, even though they're all very different, the punishment is the exact same because the zero tolerance policies are already laid out, the punishments behind them. In the workplace, for example, you can be 10 minutes late and still get the same punishment as if you're 2 hours late. And to go even smaller scale and talk about the zero tolerance drug policy, in an example that's given by a source I used for this video that will be in the description as well, it's pointed out that an individual taking mouthwash to school can be punished the same as a student who brings pot to school. And yeah, I've actually seen this happen it was like a mouth spray. When you have a sore throat, like I have right now, they make those sprays that are you can spray them in your mouth. Someone took that. We were 4th, 5th grade. This was not the school I graduated from. It was the school I went to before then. And the teacher was like, this is drugs. You guys are, who touched this? Well, freaking out. As an adult, now I realized it was a lozenge, the equivalent of a cough drop. But they were throwing a fucking tantrum about this. The point is, the punishments don't always fit the crime at the end of the day, and if the goal is to discourage illegal activity, it should. Because why would I show up for work so quickly if I'm already going to get a write-up 20 minutes late? I'm going to spend the next 15 to 20 minutes getting ready, grabbing my Starbucks, since the punishment isn't lessened if I show up at the 21-minute mark or the 41-minute mark. Why would another student report another student that has an illegal drug in the school if that student themselves has cough drops in their locker and they might get in trouble for that? Aside from this all just sounding like absolute shit, the American Psychiatric Association said all the way back in 2006 that these policies don't make schools safer and they actually increase the instances of problem behavior and dropout rates. The same study also showed the zero tolerance policies failed to increase the consistency of discipline across student groups and failed to decrease uneven enforcement of punishment across racial lines. Honestly, I'm not sure how long I'll do this little crafty controversial thing because I change my shit up every few months, but the web of systemic racism extends so far beyond what I could even get done in this year, even if I did a video every single day. More black students are being punished than white students, and that's a statistic that we covered in the last video. So if you don't think that this, as well as jobs that people bitch about all the time, if you don't think all of that stems from farther than just parents not being good parents, kindly turn this off and go watch Sesame Street or something, because you won't see it, and I can't make you see it. It's also not my place, nor is it my job to educate anybody on black issues because I'm a white woman. But the fact that within this school-to-prison pipeline, racism plays such a hefty part of it all is unfortunate and incredibly sad. So let's get to the incidents that have happened as a result of the zero tolerance policies. In 2018, at Tenaya Middle School, a 14-year-old black boy was pulled from class and told that his haircut violated the dress code. He had a design cut into his hair with a razor, which is a pretty popular hairstyle. His mom said that she would take him to get a haircut, but she wouldn't be able to get him in right away. The next day, however, she was told that her son would face in-school suspension when he came back from his new haircut because of the initial haircut. What the fuck? What criminality does a haircut have in the real world? None. It's about conformity. In 2010, a 12-year-old child was handcuffed, arrested, and physically detained at NYCPD for vandalizing a school desk. So you're probably like, oh, what'd she write? Fuck this place, dicks all over it. No. This 12-year-old wrote, I love my friends Abby and Faith, and Lex was here 2-1-10. I know, horrible, right? And she did all this with an erasable fucking marker. How innocent is that? And this little girl sat in a precinct in Queens for several hours because of this. And y'all remember, I think in the original video last month, I mentioned the 6-year-old girl that got arrested? Let's talk about that. Celicia Johnson threw a fit in the principal's office in 2012 when she was 6 years old. The principal said that she had damaged school property, and so this 6-year-old child, again 6 years old, was handcuffed and detained at the police station. She was later then charged with battery of a school teacher and criminal damage to property, but later on wasn't charged because of her age, as any sane person would see a 6-year-old child and be like, what the fuck is this? I'm going to say this, I'm not going to say it once. I'll probably say this more than once, actually. But if you cannot handle kids throwing fits or being inconsolable or being independent, especially at 6 years old, then don't be a fucking teacher. Don't work in a school. You're making it worse. And we all know a teacher that just straight doesn't like kids, right? Make it make sense. Nobody forced you to get a teaching degree. Nobody forced you to stay at that school. I don't care about tenure. If you're that miserable, and again, we all have a teacher. We all can think of a teacher right now off the top of our head that just didn't like kids. What are you doing then? Stop. Like, you can't, and it's those same teachers that sit there like, oh my gosh, we help the future generations, as you sit in your class and emotionally and verbally assault children because you don't like them. Get a different job. Zero tolerance policies completely dismiss human nature, especially when it comes to the punishments for it. Oh, well, we can't have individual punishments for each and every student. Yeah, actually we can, and we should. The government is forcing children to go to school, and so they need to see that each of these children is an individual being in and of themselves and handle them as such. It can't be done, and I'll talk about the alternative real-life examples that have worked on, I believe, the 17th. As a result of zero-tolerance policies being implemented in schools, police officers, or SROs, school resource officers, are parading around these schools. Do they make it worse? Do police officers being in schools make schools less safe? Yeah, they do, and it's been proven. In 1975, only 1% of schools had police officers within them. Most recently, 58% of schools report having police that work within them. But surely this is just to keep the kids safe, right? No, it fucking doesn't. And that's why this video exists, and that's why this topic is so frustrating. In part, it's about money. The federal government has invested over $1 billion to increase police in schools since 1998. Between 1999 and 2005 alone, a total of $823 million was awarded in grants to schools through SROs, like to get SROs and hire them. Remember, that means school resource officer. So this federal funding is obviously a bonus for schools to get the grants to hire SROs. But you want to know what the federal government didn't do very well? Outline the fucking job description of these officers. They didn't do it. It's completely up to each school and completely up to each administration to decide what is appropriate, what can be reported as juvenile, what needs to be handled in an arrest, such as a 6-year-old child kicking a trash can. In part, this was due to the Obama administration's attempt to keep harsh discipline out of schools and instead focus on alternative approaches that include the emotional needs of troubled students. this sounds good. This sounds great. Except for when the Trump administration took over, Betsy DeVos just said, fuck these kids, and took out any policy that would go against zero tolerance. Not only all this, but schools don't have to report to the federal government how many police they are employing the schools with, just how much money was used towards that resource. So there's really no available statistic of counselors versus police, and therefore the only statistics available lie within juvenile reports from schools. In short, you only see the bad and not the good outcomes of what happens when we use alternative approaches because they don't exist. And if police are in schools for the other reason, to prevent school mass unalivings, why then are the statistics increasing instead of decreasing? The first mass unaliving in a school wasn't even done by a student, it was a 70-year-old man, which tells me personally, hey, maybe policing should be focused on the outside and not start in here. But what do I know? I just make videos on the internet. But they have increased. Since 2018, there have been a reported 102 mass school unalivings. One from each decade. In the 80s, which the only thing I could find was 1985, there was an average of 15 non-active and 5 active. I'm purposefully omitting a word here, again, so this doesn't get flagged. So use your imagination to see what we're talking about. In the 90s, the entire culmination of the 90s, the decade, the average of non-active was 24.7, and the active average was 3.3. In the early 2000s, so the first decade, non-active average of 31.6, and an active average of 5.3. Current 2000s, which is 2000, the last decade, non-active average of 73.27, and an active average of 5.81. To clarify, we know what average means, right? Good. It's each year how many non-active and active were in that year divided by the amount of years, which was the decade. Okay, good. Glad we're on the same page. So how did we go from an average of 3.3 average active unalivers to 5.81? Oh, right. Because the schools aren't safer, despite there being more police, and despite harsher policies. Police don't make schools safer. They make them more dangerous, especially for minority students. And the entire point of this month's content isn't about taking police out of schools. It's about making schools safer by discovering the issue, and right now, it's looking like the issue is police presence and zero-tolerance policies. Why couldn't that $14 billion for school resource officers be given to the teachers? Do you know? If you know why $14 billion was funneled to outside policing in schools instead of funneling it into the schools, into the teachers that already work there, into the counselors and the school staff, put it in the comments. I'll give you a minute. No, you don't know? Because that wasn't part of the deal. Because the federal government didn't give them the money for teachers. They gave them that money to hire police officers. Because the policing system and the prison system is a multi-million-dollar entity, and it needs to stay as such. And yeah, that sounds a little conspiracy theorist, well, they're putting police in the schools to get more criminals. Abso-fucking-lutely, that makes sense. Where would that not make sense? Police simply aren't trained to handle cases of mental illness, and many of them aren't dedicated to resolving conflict without irritating the situation, resulting a lot of the times, as we've seen, in death or the arrest of a 6-year-old child. If you as a fully grown man cannot combat a 6-year-old child and you have to arrest them and put them in handcuffs, go home and tell your wife that you're a coward. That's it. That's the point. And I'm going to actually be talking about that in the next video. This is actually relatively short. There's going to be a lot that gets cut off. I'll put all the sources I used for this video in the description, as well as a link to E.J. Robinson's Spotify, since that is the song that I'm sure you're hearing in this video. I'm going to actually play the entirety of the song. I'm not even going to lie to you. It was written for Talkmasters, exclusively for Talkmasters, so I don't think it's on Spotify. It might be, I'm not sure. It's mine, I know that. It's mine, written for that, from this person. If that makes sense. I didn't write it. Good Lord. Let me just not. Anyway, yeah, I'll put that in the description. follow me wherever the links in the description take you, or don't. It's totally fine. And at the end of this month, I'll have a couple Thursdays again that I'll be posting some random shit, some personal vlogs. I'm a little nervous about that. Let me find something here. Dun, dun, dun. I'm trying to see if there was like something I forgot to mention from the last one, just because this doesn't feel like a lot of information. Anyway, I don't fucking know. The question is, given this information that I've given you, given the statistics, do you still think that police make schools safer? And what do you think about the zero tolerance policy? Leave a comment, because number one, it makes me feel good about myself. Number two, it allows my video to be pushed out in the algorithm of the internet and the YouTube world. I'm going to go play that entire song now so you get to listen to it and look at the completed project. Next week, I'll talk to you about mental health in the schools, I believe. We'll figure it out. I'll talk to you next week.
Woke up with blood on my hands. I guess last night, mama, I killed a man. Today I woke up with blood on my hands. I guess last night, mama, I killed a man. I was fucking his bitch, and I understand that he was trying to prove something, but he did not plan. Got the man he would test this time was his last. First grab, then a gas. He was gone in a flash. Today I realized that I am a beast, like a dragon Loch Ness, but I ain't got no leash. I've been dreaming about suicide ever since. I can't seem to get the images out of my head. I ain't no murderer, mama, no, I ain't no murderer. But if you niggas get too close, I just might murder ya. Murderer, no, I ain't no murderer. But if you niggas get too close, then I just might murder ya. I woke up with blood on my hands. I guess last night, mama, I killed a man. Today I woke up with blood on my hands. I guess last night, mama, I killed a man. Raise a blade to my life. Take a trip into the night. If you see, that the devil has taken over me. Raise a blade to my life. Take a trip into the night. If you see that the devil has taken